Yeah, I wanted to get this in real quick, and I was thinking about a little bit about the for Purple Mountain's Majesty and the Plateau, and the haloed venue thing, and the Ark of the Covenant. Achievement based upon merit and all that stuff between the haloed venue, fixture and real estate, and an easement and a stationary engineer, and all that stuff about some domiciled haloed venue of like globalization and like international financial management, some color code of the white toilet, and getting to the high silver thing about the venue and location, and the structure of where that high silver thing about the toilet is, and venue that way, and yeah, so seemed to be the deal that gets to the oldest computer mainframe, the Whopper again, ultimately to the Austin Powers, Bluebonnet, Imperial Eagle, and all the stuff about some similarities that way. And anyway, yeah, so like I wanted to get on that because it was kind of like the deal about the Ark of the Covenant, and it's kind of like it's the for Purple Mountains of Majesty, truthfully about Mount Olives and the Plateau, and re-entering heaven in the way of some deal about hey, but I have VSAT, yeah, and I have Saturn sky underneath in orbit for sure. Come on, I really can't believe it's butter anyway, and my toilet doesn't require writ of habeas corpus. Da, 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 da. So anyway, yeah, so I was kind of like thinking about that, and in a way, what achievement based upon merit is to the high silver as compared to what the Abraham Lincoln hood ornament, the Lincoln Continental, and some deal about the rectangle, as well as even like back in the 80s, I used to go to the drum shop quite a bit to get like all my Remo black dot drum heads and drumsticks, and sometimes some percussion and cymbals, and when I needed them, but predominantly it's like always I was practicing quite a bit, and always going there for like drum heads. Remo black dot was like the thing back then, and now from the 80s through the 90s there was some transitioning somewhere between getting to the Aquarian white dot, and that's really what I use now is like the Performance 2 Aquarian, the white dot Performance 2 and Studio X, and the high energy, and stuff about the white dot, the Aquarian, and it's a white dot as compared to like Remo's a black dot. And the Aquarian representing, factors of like, what below sea level would even suggest. Anyway, it's just some amphibious deal about the aquarium as compared to, the Aquarian being, similarities of like liquid equity and international floating accounts of like interest-bearing accountability, or, what maritime law is in that way, or some factors of that, even the thing about measuring density of light in nanounits would be like the Deep Star 6 thing about the 6-point star, and my thought about the Abraham Lincoln that way of like night vision, and to the 13 band graphic equalizer, and the 13 colonies of American history, as well as the 13 stars above the eagle, and the alphanumerics of 99 and 13 that way of some telepathic TP ultimately getting to the nativity point of origin of yeah, I've been to a summit meeting, yeah, and all that stuff about it. But anyway, like a Native American Indian that way of a telepathic teepee, and straight to the once again to the Statue of Liberty, on to the euro dollar, and some greatness about some reference to even night vision be like the Newbags, Iowa thing as compared to what is referred to in political campaigning, and I don't know if really the word has to be campaigning or convincing in a way of what my thoughts of like Abraham Lincoln is to night vision, or what Newbags, Iowa is to the toilet. Yeah, seems to be like the thing about the real deal about Abraham Lincoln, studying in the dark, yeah, like night vision, ultimately getting to like I said, ultimately like a world class and world history, identifying the pastel green, and is one of the colors of like the nanoluminous that is measuring in the LED pastel green of like the 13 band graphic equalizer of ambience, likewise in addition of American amplified, and now on the home theater in the, I think it's the max of 100, I'm pretty sure it's almost the max of like mega kilohertz, and what that is to the KZS compared to the the MHZ, MKHC. I've seen both the 3 and the 4 acronym about it, you know, on Lincoln Continental as well as like Cadillac, MKZ. And, you know, if it's ultimately getting to the power of amplification of what the spectrum is in bandwidth, or, you know, transmission, reception, and relay, or, you know, what that is in VSAT and space exploration and, you know, networking, I mean, with like global positioning systems in the way. I mean, you know, globalization seems to be like, you know, beyond the domicile halo venue of, you know, the color codes of the toilet, yeah, and what that is to like one of the oldest, you know, once again, oldest governmental A-frames, um, uh, 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 yeah, and what that is to the exclusionary rule provision and executive powers and, you know, wide earth and some like reality of like third and fourth generation in my mind of like the history of the television screen of like Wyatt Earp and what Hopsing is like, you know, about the toilet and, you know, Vantage Love 30 and all that stuff that I've been referring to. But anyway, yeah, I wanted to get this in real quick because it's kind of like thinking about it for Purple Mountain Majesty and what that is to the plateau and like, you know, the absolute Christianity thing about, you know, after the death or resurrection and on his way to, you know, Lord Jesus Christ, on his way to like the Mount Olive still, and that being, I'm almost for certain it's a plateau. Not necessarily, you know, the thing about, you know, the holiday involving a mistletoe, but the plateau, you know, although it might be, you know, more informative presentation, more adequate direction thing, you know, beyond the Abraham Lincoln, the link on, and the Art link letter, and the link on, link letter, like connection, I mean, for real, and a more informative presentation in a more adequate direction that way, you know, and the Vantage Love 30 thing, and the ground holds up well between, you know, the baseball field and the tennis court, and, you know, the humor about it seems to be like, so seriously, you know, likewise, in addition to Y2K, as well as the marginal spread of, you know, the baseball and the tennis court, what that is really to the new millennium, I mean, really, and you know, somewhere in my mind, it's kind of like even the deal about the Nostradamus, narrated by Orson Welles, you know, and Orson Welles, you know, stating by narration that Nostradamus was like accurate with a 400-year period during all of his predictions. The accuracy was like phenomenal, and something about ultimately that was like determined to be based upon analytical, you know, scholars and all the academics of people that refer to that the year 2012 would be the thing about Nostradamus and, you know, even the movie, but prediction. But anyway, it's like the new millennium. It was like the main issue of the year 2000 in Nostradamus. Likewise, Y2K, and what's the tennis court and the baseball field between, you know, the marginal spread of, you know, the baseball field, and like ultimately getting to the perfect 10-10 vision of like the infinite lines that way of even the pi square factor of you know, spherical quadrants in a way of like the infinite lines of a 90-degree angle, and the symmetrical asymmetrical factor of like, you know, the spherical quadrants of 90 degrees, ultimately getting to the 180, like a telepathic answer, and what that is. And I've been like really thinking about it because the thing about the Lincoln, you know, the way the R is between the county and the country, you know, obviously it's almost like the principle of the P. When you see it, it's pronounced. Sometimes when you see it, it's not pronounced. But, you know, with the R, it's kind of like when you see it, it's pronounced, and when you don't see it, it's not pronounced. But it's like the difference between the county and the country. And, you know, the P normally, you know, involving, you know, like psychology and many pseudo factors in a way of what the P is normally chronologically in order in reading from left to right. I mean, it's normally followed with an S. But anyway, you know, that factor about that applied to like Lincoln, and rearranging, you know, the pronunciation of Lincoln to the kennel, and really what RCA is to, you know, the mascot of the dog, and the CEO thing about RCA and the dog thing, and the in God, and what the difference is about the telekinetics that way of like alphanumeric, just compared to the experience of like beyond telekinetics of the roll of the pen, and to, you know, the thing about that J. Edgar Hoover amphibious deal about the above the you know, the surface of like isometrics in three-dimensional of actual participation beyond like local area banks, and you know, like the internet protocol, like local area networks that way, and being above it in a way of you know, some amphibious stuff that would even represent a degree level as compared to what normally might be maybe ignored or not recognized as like opportunity, what degree, non-degree, is to the fact and the equator and operator that way and the separation between church and state. But anyway, it's kind of like thinking about the Purple Mountains, for Purple Mountain's majesties in the way of like a achievement based upon merit. And that about whether or not if like international financial management or globalization, domiciled residency, and what fixtures in real estate, and what that is with the toilet lid down and the toilet lid up, or achievement based upon merit, or is it a plateau or a haloed venue? Is actual participation the real factor of like the halo venue like Mount Albs and the Hopsing thing about forbearance. I mean, more formative presentation and more adequate direction. It's almost like the deal about forbearance. I mean, for real, like the thing about the Hopsing in like the history of the television screen, and so many factors like really the Technicolor being the pastel, and Harris in Egypt and Israeli being the 73 thing in the Union, and quite a bit about the 73 deal about the pastel. In the Houston area, Houston, Texas area, and the Electronic Power Way International, and Selective Service, and quite a bit about that a telepathic service stuff. Yeah. So anyway, kind of like let's think about that because for Purple Mountain's Majesty, it seems to be like the big deal about Fort Stockton, Ector County, and I don't know if I would really choose, but I've heard that something about the Red Sector X would be I'm not really sure if that's actually the deal about redundant frequency. But it seems to be like the big deal about 24 and like the Homeowners Association being HOA, HOA and 24, or the redundant frequency, the RF being 24, or even the Apple iPhone SE being like 24, or the GMAC of the promissory notes, or the .com, or if it's ultimately getting to whether or not if a dot compromise or the .com promissory note is the thing, really of whether or not the commerce dictates what's on or offshore, or what boycott and embargo is to, so-called now operators are standing by kind of like thing, huh? Or, what that is to, the Better Business Bureau, or, other factors of network operations and internet protocol, or what that is to, to the aggregates in a way of the M1, M2, and M3, and it seems to be, the deal about, the way it's actually, the M dash or the hyphen 1, the M dash or hyphen like a 2, and the M dash or hyphen thing about the three aggregates. I mean, if ultimately it's like intended to be something about enforcement or annotated, when annotation is enforced, like innovation is not a question, kind of like deal, and what all this the Vantage Love 30 is compared to some 90-degree right angle and the ground rule double and Vantage Love 30 being like a secret de facto, and that would be like a 70 and like 54 being some factors that seem to be like the deal about the J.D. Powers and the way, even the Six Flag deal, and from Theodore to like Franklin, the 6 presidential terms in office being 6 terms that way, or the information of like the 9/11, 9/11 alphanumerics from like 95 to like 1995 to like 2001, the world trade, and what 9/11 is like a 6-year period, and even from like once again like the ABC 13 Houston to the ABC 7 Los Angeles, it's ultimately getting to the 6 in that way, and quite a bit about the factors of the pronunciation as compared to alphanumerics and linguistics and practical application of principles and integration and all that stuff, and analytics that way. I mean, but anyway, it's kind of like I was thinking about it because the thing about the toilet and the seed and the plateau and the rising canyon thing about sometimes the humor seems to be so very much it that leads to like a whole new perception and direction. And it's so it's really it's been like a serious like huge help in my direction and really studying that way. And it's like so much vary the direction and humor that way, not really intended to be anything other than that, but really it's seriously serious humor, yeah, for real. But anyway, yeah, so in any case, yeah, so like all that domiciled household, or she was some humor about it. But anyways, kind of think about that because the factor of like on the way to Mount Olives and ascending, the word being the transfiguration thing of the alphanumerics of like the Book of Thessalonians, re-entering heaven thing about the alphanumerics once again of 192. It's on a home theater, and seriously what that is to a summit meeting, or beyond, the thing about, whether or not if when you see a mountain climbing thing, or, the summit, beyond the thought of, AA, or, American Amplified, or, really what that is beyond certain features in real estate that way that's been mentioned, like right here, right now. But anyway, so like if the thought of achievement based upon merit would, distinguish whether or not if participation were, a globalization term of like international financial management, that, obviously is involving, even the Commonwealth, that can identify, the history of like currency and money, ultimately getting to, some factors of like even, civil rights, or what the deal is with amendments, and having the right to assemble, and what that is to, like, the monetary, domestic, and gross national product, or yeah, or some like factors that would identify Commonwealth in a way of sanitation, and the 13 colonies, and yeah, I mean, all that information is available for actually identifying, what Commonwealth seems to be involving. I mean, it's like not real easy to find sometimes, but I mean, it's like, all about, some domicile, globalization, beyond, as well as, whether or not, I'm thinking that the Purple Mountain's Majesty in my mind, as compared to like the holiday season, like being of Christmas and the mistletoe, and the thing about the, it seems to be like the thought of like a holy day as like one day. Yet, so many factors involved, like in Christianity, suggesting that the mistletoe would be, a more informative presentation, a more adequate direction, and some factors, that seem to be, in my mind, even the thing about the hood ornament and the rectangle, and that way of like Abraham Lincoln, ultimately getting to, the pronunciation of like Lincoln to the kennel, and the R of the county and the country being applied to the colonel, ultimately getting to, once again, the thing about the sequencing characterization in sets of 4 using 2 numbers of the binary numbers, and some pastel deal that in my memory, like on the way to the drum shop on West Loop 610, getting on like the thing about the Highway 59, Univision like used to be like right there on the northeast corner that way, on my way to the drum shop, like getting my Remo black dot drum heads and drumsticks, and I used to like go out there all the time. I had mentioned that certain factors, like a lot of streets were like changing, not really changing, but switching, and it seemed switching like signs from like place to place around the entire Houston area, and I was like really noticing. It's kind of like, even when I went to Dallas, I kind of like I mean, I'm familiar with like, when reading in a not so familiar place, reading like, the signs like on highways and freeways and all that stuff. It's really not a problem. But like I was like going through Dallas one time, and I was actually thoroughly dependent upon the sign, and I realized about after the 4th time that was like on a Grand Prix racetrack, repeatedly depending upon the signs, and it's not that I don't comprehend reading, signs on a highway. It's just that after the 4th time, I was like, that's what I was doing. I was depending on it. It's like continually going like around, like I'm not really a circle, but like a Grand Prix track all around like Dallas. So I was kind of like, I realized I couldn't even depend on, what I was reading anymore. And that's really part about some of the factors of like depending on my memory and what that is to like a memory minus the background equaling, the thing about 35, and Austin, and what 84 is to the embassy, or Austin Powers, Blue Bonnet, Imperial Eagle, and the thing about the 35 and like NASA and Dodge, and the I thing about the color codes that way, and even the deity on the backside of the US $1, and what that really is, and the IRS, and the I, and the colors about the the eyes, and vision that way, and so anyway, I wanted to kind of put that in there because I was thinking about that deal about the globalization in a way of like Commonwealth, and for Purple Mountain's Majesty above the fruited plains, and it's kind of like, is it litigation? A settlement. It's like are being on like, is it a settlement? Is it litigation? But I was hoping for a Langeine. It's like, is it the LighTeen, or is it the lit? Is it lit? The litigation? I mean, is it the gate? The lid. The Purple Mountain's Majesty. So, I was hoping for a Langeine. So it's not litigation. It's DeLight. It's DeLight. It's DePlain. It's DePlain. Yeah, the plateau thing about is it like a haloed venue of like domiciled residency, and production of like a little bit more than informative presentation, more adequate direction, and the forbearance of like Hobsing. Yeah. not so eccentric that it diminishes the value of on-site location. You know, it's kind of like the alert as they go thing, right? Or, you know, some forbearance that would, you know, equate to some like value of like annuity, like a non-taxable income in a way, like even SSI is a supplemental security income as compared to the International Space Station, the ISS, and the SSI thing. You know, something like really beyond the thing about the non-taxable, you know, and if the word's really even, you know, income, I mean, you know, I mean, if it's ultimately getting to the deal about forbearance, or, you know, the Bering Straits and all the clarity of like what the figure eight is of ice skating, or what that is in importing and exporting that way, or the clarity of like perfect 10-10 vision, of quite a bit that I've been talking about. But I'm going to kind of like slow it down here. I'm going to take a break already, because actually I think this would be good enough, because I was just really wanting to focus on the thought of the Four Purple Mountains Majesty, and the deal about the fruited plain. For Purple Mountains Majesty above the fruited plain. It's kind of like the deal about the plateau. And in my mind, it seemed to be all the factors that also lead to what a plateau is beyond like a mistletoe, or, you know, an informative to say an informative presentation in a more adequate direction. Okay, and the thing about what the night vision is to Abraham Lincoln of the Lincoln Continental Hood Ornament and the rectangle that way. Or, you know, like, you know, I was kind of like thinking about the Chimney Rock deal about, you know, Southwest Freeway, Highway 59, where the drum shop, where I used to go like all the time with the rainbow black dot. And now what is available is the Aquarian white dot. And it seems to me like the black and white of the drum head of like Univision, you know, the thing about auditing legal media and deposition is that, you know, I really never even thought really if white is a pastel or not, or if it's the one that can be either or, as compared to the black. And the deal about Univision is like, it's almost like really truthfully using two numbers of color code that way, of like white and black. One is considered possibly optional as a pastel, and like the black is really not. And I never really thought about it and how true it is. I'm really not sure if the white can be, you know, optional that way of pastel. But like Univision, it's almost like a 6 in characterization in sets of 4, using only two numbers or even two colors that way. Yeah, and Univision used like 4 pastel colors, and I do believe it is the one with the white. And when I really kind of, you know, just driving by there on my way to the drum shop, I mean, I just like looked at the deal about Univision, and I mean, I wasn't even really even thinking about anything about like that, like back then, really anything before like June 1992. I mean, not in any kind of way. And then the drum shop, like, you know, wherever they went or whatever happened is predominantly, you know, it's like hadn't been there like for like, you know, and I think it's like just somewhere during the 1990s, and predominantly, you know, what seems to be like the Guitar Center, you know, thing about it now, and you know, something like a Sweetwater, or, you know, or American Musical Supply, or what would be like online shopping as compared to like, you know, just like going to Guitar Center or some local issue storefronts. Yeah. So anyway. In any case, so like I was thinking about that because, you know, it's like driving by, and my memory, it seemed to me like it's so dependent on my memory, because you know, I got to that part about a memory minus de facto, and what settlement is to, you know, like Commonwealth and the toilet and the 13 colonies of like American history and American Native American Indian, the telepathic TP thing, the TPP in 36, and the alphanumerics. It's so much about 181 as the using 64 or 36 that way. And ultimately it gets to the Native American Indian that way of the TP. And it was like so stresses, you know, the thing about the nativity, point of origin in that way. And Native American Indian, the thing like, you know, hey, they were here first. Kind of, you know, the natives were here first, but, you know, in need of management because of no progression in the way and needed management that way. The bewildered, you know, thing about behavior. And, you know, that stands true even today about, you know, what some people's idea of the weekend is, you know. The nightclub thing, or, you know, whatever used to mean predominantly, is deemed as acceptable as like a standard, like that's like available, like just like watching television. You know, it's kind of really promotes the thought and attitude and mentality that way. And really, you know, after quite a bit about, you know, that, I really don't necessarily approve really with any of it the way television persuades, what seems to be not always identified as deemed as acceptable. You know, the persuasive thought of, you know, hey, you know, you got to do that thing. Or the thing about the word deemed or redeemed is kind of like, you know, hey, it just don't seem to be the thing about when and where, you know, that happens. being redeemed or deemed, it's like your potential liquidable, equitable, intellectual easement and proper English numerical composition kind of like thing. So anyway, it's kind of like, really, the thought about, that is not really cool at all. So I'm not really thinking, something about the thing about being deemed as acceptable. It's not like the factor of like anything other than, sometimes a required thought of what participation really means. So anyway, yeah, so like I was thinking about that because, well, that's the for Purple Mountain's majesty and like the Lord Jesus Christ, like going to Mount Olives that way. Obviously, I mean, a plateau in that way, in my mind, for Purple Mountain's majesty above the fruited plains really is to like the Lord Jesus Christ at Mount Olives on at the mountain, the plateau, and like ascending, and the deal about the word, re-entering heaven, which is almost like the exact opposite of the rapture, meeting the Lord Jesus Christ in the sky, the second coming, or like, the first thing about him, like re-entering heaven and ascending that way. Even the amphibious thing about, even the barometric altimeter of condescending residuals, I mean, so for real about it. And network terminology sometimes I may very much about, the book cover of like a run performance monitor that way. Even the deal about the rainbow and color codes of international electronic engineering and all the everything about it. So anyway, like I don't want to include that because, the thought of like, whether or not if litigation is only the thought of like commonwealth of settlement, or, some international financial management factors that would identify commonwealth, what it is to the commonwealth or providing more informative presentation, more adequate, direction that way. Getting about the plateau or, what Hopsing is in that way. So, forbearance, I mean, for real. And it's so not funny about forbearance. I mean, the similarities of practical application in international financial management, or like daily standards of practice, or like even supplemental security, or even, the international, and, the phenomenal, thing about, annuity and in a way, it's like the practical application of like, the forbearance of a student loan. I mean, it's so like practical application of supplemental and what annuity is, really even beyond the corporate level, where normally the foundation, the whole entire point, most people's perception of like, where like the thought of like annuity begins at a corporate level is very much that. But, the thing about annuity, it goes really beyond like corporate participation, or what structure might only suggest is what venue is or is not, or what exporting is to like a I don't really think that warehousing really has to be the word, or gross national product in the way of like a storage area networks or SAN software of securities and annuities. The thing is that it seems to be the same difference of whether or not the settlement is really the issue of like litigation, or is it the LighTeen, or is it the RaTeen, the PG13 RaTeen, or is it the LighTeen? Is it gee, I was hoping for a Langeine, but you got the deal of pronunciation. Is it litigation, or is it the gate, like the lid, or the plateau, or in progress, or some haloed venue of settlement? I mean, for real. I mean, if it's ultimately getting to the plateau, while it's not in use, or some like memorial representing what participation is or is not, or the monument of some like factor of like airborne. Yeah, the amphibious thing likewise, in addition to even the Sandy Senior Monument and the stars born, with the 5 stars of like Australia is, to like the 1 star of even the amphibious deal about the airborne, like a spiritual gifted like thing about the backside of symbolic representation on the US $1 bill, and all that thing about the alphanumerics of 151 that way. And it seems the difference between the experience and just like the knowledge academically of the difference between, it seemed to be a big deal about the mascot, or what that is, the boycott and embargo, that way of like commerce dictating what's on or offshore, or in a way beyond the front lines of the beach, right? And the deal about it, and the RF, redundant frequency, and all that stuff about venue and and so anyway, I want to include that. It's already going along pretty close to like close to like 30 minutes and 29 minutes and like 44 seconds right now. But anyway, I think I'm going to kind of leave it there between, the idea of like whether or not the litigation is the thought of settlement, like on the toilet, or you know, where there's it's the Langeine thing about it's the light, it's the light, it's the plan, it's the plan. Yeah, yeah, and what that is to, like, you know, two-dimensional isometrics of actual participation, a three-dimensional deal about even a power squared factor of volume, and American amplified in that way, and ultimately getting to the perfect 10-10 vision for real. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there right now. Keep it, you know, kind of like before, like while I was thinking about it, yeah, to include it. Okay. So anyway, talk to you later.